no matter what, by beating the Commanders last week for the NFL playoffs. NFC seedings, San Francisco has the number 1 seed. Both the Eagles and Lions lose their respective consistency against the Cowboys and Cardinals. For the Philadelphia Eagles to win the title, they have to have the Eagles win and or the Cowboys lose or tie. Eagles tie or Cowboys loss. Eagles will play the Giants. And Tampa Bay Buccaneers clinch a playoff spot with a and or Falcons lost. The Buccaneers will play the worst team in the NFL, the Panthers. The Detroit Lions, however, if the Saints manage to beat the Buccaneers to ensure that the NFC South, the Detroit Lions status is if Detroit Lions win, they guarantee a home playoff spot wild card weekend by a win and lost by Dallas. Dan Campbell, already festy squad, is likely to need to be extra reeled up after week 17, so likely a 3. Philadelphia Eagles, after the Cowboys beat the Lions, the Cowboys now have the head-to-head. Philadelphia could end up a 5 if the Eagles would lose to the Giants. Status is the Eagles, who began with a 10-1 record and have clinched a playoff spot already, but can East with a win and a Cowboys loss or tie. If Philadelphia ties on Sunday and Dallas loses, then the Eagles will win the NFC East. The Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the number 6 seed no matter what happens. The way of the Packers advancing, they get in with a win. Status on Green Bay or a Vikings loss, a tie, and a Seahawks would be the way of the Vikings get in. This is how the NFC North works. Falcons, the status of that, the Saints need to stop a 4-game winning streak by the Bucs, creating a scenario that win the NFC South by snatching a final playoff berth. The Saints can win the NFC South combinations. Saints win and Bucs lose or tie. Saints tie and Bucs lose this week for the wild card. And remember, the Panthers are playing the Buccaneers are playing the worst team in the league, the Panthers. A Vikings tie and loss and a Packers win positions Minnesota into a 3rd. A Vikings tie and a between the Packers and Bears positions Minnesota into 3rd. A Vikings loss and a Bears win positions Minnesota into 4th. If the Bears would have won last week and Minnesota and Green Bay would have tied, they would have still had the shot at the playoffs. But as it is, the Bears are out. The Seahawks must beat the Cardinals week 18 to keep themselves in playoff contention, but also need a loss from the Packers and Vikings winner. Packers and Vikings a winner. If Green Bay wins, if the Seahawks won in, they will need the Packers to lose, the Bears to lose to Minnesota in week 17. The Seahawks will need to win a Vikings loss. The Seahawks will need that scenario to make the playoffs. Seattle with a loss is out. Week 18 back in, barring a Vikings tie or loss. If it'll be Green Bay. Week 17, the Seahawks need all that stuff to happen to get into the playoffs.
Going off playoff scenarios entering week 18. We just did the AFC. Now we're going to turn to the NFC. All right, here's what's at stake. Dallas can clinch the NFC East with a win against the Commanders or a Philadelphia loss. Philly, who decided, y'all are driving me crazy here behind the scenes. Philly can clinch the division with the win against the Giants there in New York, but they also need Dallas to lose as well. When it comes to the NFC South, Tampa Bay, all they need to do is win at Carolina there. However, if Tampa loses, the winner of the Falcons Saints can win the division. And even if Tampa wins, there's also a scenario where the Saints could potentially get into the playoffs there. So,
well, there's always a way.
There's always a way.
Turn the ball away.
Every quarterback is playing for his job.
They beat the Texans at home.
What?
They beat the Texans at home.
Yeah, but they're not going to beat the Bucs at home. The Bucs have to have this game. They know it. They win, they're in.
You worried about Baker Mayfield's injury at all?
No, I think he'll be fine. But I do think they bounce back here. I think they're the better team by far, and I think they win the game.
I think they win too, but you stated something. I wonder what it does for their psyche, right? Because they win this game, they get into the playoffs, they win the division. But they had that same scenario last week versus Saints, versus a divisional foe who, because they let win that game, still has a chance to get into the playoffs, even if the Bucs do beat Carolina. So we talked about this, Pete, all last week. We knew that the Saints going to Tampa was going to be hard for the Bucs because they've had a lot of success, and that was our question mark. Knowing that defensive front from the Saints, would Tampa Bay be able to protect? Well, they weren't. Baker Mayfield was harassed the whole game. Before you knew it, it was 20-0 going into the fourth quarter. They're dealing with other issues with their owner throwing drinks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're a Bucs fan and you're sitting below there, bring an umbrella, even if it's not raining.
They're dealing with other issues. But I think Tampa Bay does get back on track. The question is, what does it do for their psyche, knowing that a divisional foe went into their house last week and beat them down?
Should the fan get that money, Pete? Oh, gosh.
$1.76?
Okay, you don't think the Panthers have a chance to win this game. If they do, though, the Falcons-Saints game would be for the division. The Falcons can still win the division. They cannot get a wild card. Now, the Saints will still be alive no matter what. 31% chance to get in for New Orleans, a 9% chance for the Falcons.
I like the Saints to win this game, but just too many injuries at the quarterback position. We don't know of how. And Derek Carr, he's shown me something in the last few weeks. Even though they lost that game versus the Rams, I thought he actually played pretty well in that game. He played really well last week, was efficient, and he didn't have that costly turnover that we're accustomed to seeing him do, Pete. So if you look at this game, yes, the New Orleans Saints playing the Atlanta Falcons, divisional foe, that game can go either way. But I just think the way the Saints defense is playing, seems like Derek Carr the last few weeks has gotten some confidence with that offense and his pass catchers. I like the Saints to win this game.
It's an interesting game because the winner could be win the division and could be in. The loser team.
4:25 on CBS. We get a really interesting game here. We get Bears at Packers. And here's the thing with this one is for the Packers, it's the same situation as last year.
Yeah,
they were facing the Lions. All they had to do was win, and they were in. Lions had nothing to play for. They beat them. Same thing with the Bears. They're already out of the postseason as well.
But this year they have a quarterback.
They do.
Oh!
Also,
It's incredible how much better they are.
Man.
And we said this a lot leading up. You know, I was ready to bury them a couple different times. As the young guys have improved, this team has improved. You know, you go across the board. The offensive line had all kinds of issues early in the season. The answer is there. He is their guy. He's proven that to people. He's proven that to the skeptics, and we know some of them before the season. This guy can play, and he's showing it. And he's, you know what? He plays with a, I don't care. And I said, okay. That's fine. And his teammates all love him.
Would win this division, which
I didn't. I picked the Packers to win.
Oh, you did? So I picked Detroit, but I felt like Green Bay could be in this scenario. Chicago Bears, they're one of the hottest teams in football right now.
Just like Detroit was last year.
Yeah, so I know Haz, you're a little happy about that. Quick question before I go. Haz, are you on board with keeping Justin Fields?
I think you have to.
Want to take Caleb Williams?
I think you have to. I think most Bears fans feel that way. He's earned it.
Interesting. So that's the thing you have to ask if you're Ryan Poles when you look at this scenario. Do you think Caleb Williams gives you a bigger ceiling to win a championship, or do you continue to build around Justin Fields, knowing what you've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks? And Pete, we stated this. Everybody was saying Chicago could make a run at the playoffs. We said it was 2 years away. We thought that they could be much improved like they are. And if they win this game, that's 8 wins on the season. So I would think the whole coaching staff would come back. When you look at Jordan Love and this Green Bay offense, that's the struggle with it, right? Jaden Reed got hurt last week. Christian Watson has a hamstring. Will he have his weapons this game? Because not only
I told you guys yesterday, they're going to be a playoff team next year. The Bears will be a playoff team. One more thing about the Packers. They've been playing with a lead because Love has been playing well, and that turns their pass rushers loose. And when you can turn your pass rushers loose, if your quarterback's playing well and your pass rushers can get after the quarterback, you're going to have success, not just in the regular season, but also in the postseason.
So you
pulls the upset.
Do you really?
I really do. I think this is the same scenario as last year. And Jordan Love not having Jaden Reed, to me, who has been their true #1 receiver because Watson has been hurt. We'll see if Watson can go with the hamstring. You know that's always fickle. So even if he does go, if something were to happen in the first quarter and he's out of the game, not having him and Jaden Reed, I think will be too much to overcome for the Green Bay Packers.
Well, if that happens, then all of a sudden the Seattle Seahawks are back in play because they need the Packers to lose to get in. They would also need to beat the Arizona Cardinals this week.
Man. That's tough, though. Arizona, we saw what they just did to Philly, right?
Playing hard.
They're playing hard.